Hello everyone, welcome to my online video tutorial. So my name is Paula Angelika Amado. I will be your teacher for today's lesson. In line with that, I am going to be discussing the topic intercultural communication. So this is under the professional education or profit course, which is the social dimension of education. Before we proceed into our lesson, I'm going to show you the objectives in this topic. The goals and objectives. First is understand the meaning of language and communication. Second, show the relationship between language and culture. Third, enumerate the characteristic of culture. Fourth, understand and explain how language are distinguished. And last is identify the components of culture. Intercultural communication is a communication that aims to share information across different cultures and social groups. It is used to describe the wide range of communication processes that naturally appear within an organization. Also, intercultural communication is sometimes used with cross-cultural communication, wherein it sends people to understand how people from different countries and cultures should act, communicate, and perceive. Communication is an act or instance of transmitting, or it is a way of giving or sharing information. It is also an interaction between two or more people with the purpose of conveying a message. Communication is also an art of speaking and writing. In communication, it involves the sender who sends the information or the message, and the receiver who receives the message. Verbal communication. This refers to the use of language, or it is a way of sharing information with the use of speech. In other words, it is a kind or a type of communication that uses spoken words to communicate. The second one is the nonverbal communication. This refers to the use of gestures, facial expressions, and other body movement. Nonverbal communication is a kind of communication between two or more people through sending and receiving wordless clues. Also, in nonverbal communication, it includes chronomics, which is the use of time, at the oculesic, eye contact, and the action of looking while talking and listening. What is language? Language is a system of verbal and, in many cases, written rules about how those symbols can be strung together to convey more complex meanings. Or, language is a method on how humans communicate. It is either spoken or written. Language is also a symbol by means of which a human being can be identified as a member of a social group. Under language we have the paralanguage. Paralanguage is the language of gestures, expressions, and postures. When we say paralanguage, it is an area of nonverbal communication that emphasizes body language, such as expressing thoughts and feelings. In paralanguage, it can be expressed consciously and unconsciously, and it includes the pitch, volume, and the intonation of speech. While body language, it is the most obvious for a paralanguage. When we say body language, it is in the intentional movement that we produce whenever we are talking to someone. You're going to ask, what is the difference between body language and paralanguage? A paralanguage, it conveyed through mouth and can be understood through hearing, while body language conveyed through the whole body and can be understood as vision and sight. The four areas of language. We have phonology, a system or a systematic organization of sounds in a language. Semantics. It is a grammatical structure of language that provides the needed clues for understanding, or it's simply a way in which a language conveys meaning. Grammar consists of two parts: syntax, which is the study of individual words, or it is a knowledge that allows us to recognize sentences containing a different word order and levels of complexity; and morphology, the study of the smallest basic unit of language. We have grammatics, the ways how the members of speech community achieve their goals using relationship between language and culture. According to Panopio, language is an integral part of culture, and human culture cannot exist without it. All human societies have languages. In some simple societies, where people cannot read or write, they have a spoken language. Well, according to Edward Spear, the linguistic relativity hypothesis asserts that the language determines the thought and therefore the culture. What is culture? Culture is a set of learned behaviors, beliefs, attitudes, values, and ideals. I define culture as a set of learned behaviors, beliefs, attitudes, values, and ideals. Also, culture refers to an organization of phenomena which includes an act, object, idea, and sentiments. We have here the characteristics of culture. The first one is culture is learned. Knowing that culture is not automatic, people will learn it through exposure on how others use it. In learning culture, it is a step-by-step process which leads to habitual routine. We learn this through everyday exposure to those cultured is shared by a group of people. Culture cannot be learned by oneself alone. As the famous quote, "No man is an island." We cultivate that culture by exposing ourselves with a group of people. Whatever norms the members are following, we also followed, because it is what it is, and it is what the standards that should be followed. Culture is cumulative. Culture is progressive. Culture is changing, and culture is growing, and that's how it should be. New information about the culture should be added and developed, or the old information should be restored. However, all of these should be passed down into generation to evolve the culture. Culture change. Since change is a constant thing in the world, change in culture is also a must-have. All culture knowledge does not perfectly accumulate it, but when it comes to culture change, at the same time, new knowledge or new cultural traits are added. Some old ones are lost because they believe that they are no longer useful. Culture is dynamic. This is a characteristic of culture that stems from its cumulative quality. So, no culture is ever permanent. Everything is constantly changing because new ideas and new techniques are added, and old ways are constantly modified and discarded. Culture is diverse. This means that the sum of human culture is consist of a great many separate cultures. Each of them is different. So, culture as a whole is a system of many mutually interdependent parts. Culture gives us a range of permissible behavior. This only means that every culture allows a range of ways in which men can be men and women can be women. Culture also tells us how different activities should be done or should be conducted, like how one should act as a husband, a wife, a parent, or a child. And lastly, we have the four components of culture. The first component is communication. Under communication, we have the language and symbols. The second component is behavioral. Under behavioral, we have the norms, mores, laws, folkways. The third component is cognitive. Under cognitive is we have the ideas, knowledge, and beliefs. And the last component is the materials. Under materials, we have tools and medicines, books, transportations, and technologies. For today, guys, I hope you have learned something from the tutorial. And I'll see you again next time on our next video. Bye!